Paul. Thank you very much, Dr. Magombe. I am a man who enjoys the sound of his own voice, so I am not given to brevity. So I must thank my dear brother, Kweku Mandela, whose name I mentioned with deep reference, for having kept it short. I am not promising to be that short. It is not likely to happen. So let me just warn you all ahead of time. I do enjoy the sound of my own voice. I must thank the organizers, the Felabration organizers, the Fela and Nikolako Kuti family, everybody connected with putting this together. I must salute them and I must thank them. I respect podiums. I respect podiums. Fela and Nikolako paid a price for the podium that has been raised today. And it is a podium that has been raised with integrity. So I salute Anikulapo. In Yoruba land, we have the cult of the ancestors. That is the Egungun. Fela Anikulapo is an ancestor. He is deserving of worship. And I salute and doff my imaginary hat. But if I could chunk off one of these, I might have done that. So first thing first, I must say thanks for the opportunity. What I have now done is because my thoughts can sometimes range as far as my locks. So what I have done is to write myself an outline so that I don't carry you on too many journeys. Now, I have heard it said today that it was a coincidence. The theme of this year's Felabration and even the topic itself was a coincidence. No, that is not the case. Fela was a truth teller, the one we sought to make a prophet, but he was a truth teller. He spoke constant truth to a system that has refused to change. And because his words were true and the society itself has refused to change, the same things that he sang about 30 years ago are still relevant today because Nigeria has not changed. The black man has not changed. The Europeans have not changed. The world really hasn't changed much, but Nigeria particularly has remained stupidly bad all these years. I was told that we'll be talking colomentality. You know, the first thing that comes to mind when you speak about colonialism is that it's the white man and that he has colonized us and that we are speaking to the colonization by the white. But I think if you actually took time to listen to some of Fela's music, I was blessed to have come to Lagos in 1985. And I was blessed to have come to LASU and I had friends who were Fela shrine adherents. So I was introduced to the shrine and I used to be at the shrine pretty regularly, the one at Pepple Street. And I recall some of the songs, particularly some that haven't been released as LPs till today. There is one where the chorus spoke of Alaji Alaji, and Fela was talking about how our rulers from the rulers, or shall I reverse that? The rulers are divorced from the people. So what you find is that colomentality is really talking about internal colonization, the creation of a super class that has rendered everybody else as such. There is, when this awakening started 8 days ago, the young men and women spoke about NSAS, They were responding to the brutality of the Nigerian police. Their brutality is legendary, and I have written about it in several pieces that I have done. Fela spoke long ago. He said, uniform na cloth, na tailor, they sew am. Yes, that was an attempt by Fela to demystify the uniform that had come to represent the oppression of the Nigerian people. But that oppression continues 40 years later. So when you begin to take in context what Fela had said, some of these things were said 40 years ago. And if you are unfortunate or fortunate, as the case might be, to have lived through some of these tragedies as I have lived through them, and you are now entering the twilight years. I am now 52, and I am looking at the totality of my society, and I have begun to look back and wonder, what kind of country am I going to leave behind for my children? And then I saw these young people trooping onto the street and demanding the end of search. And then it became, the system tried what it would usually have done. They renamed it. But these young people did not fall for the renaming, because they began to ask the next questions. You know, it's like a puzzle. You solve one, and then something else is inside. I think there is some sort of, I don't know what game it is, but you open one box, okay, that will be the Russian dolls. You open one, there's another one inside. So the young people say, no, end SWAT too. Now they are saying end impunity. Now they are saying end SARS. Now that's Senate and House of Reps. The young people are beginning to connect the thread. But there is something that is very important, and this is something I had talked about earlier this week. And this is the importance of the Moses generation in Nigeria, and I'll tie it to the colonial mentality issue. There is a reason why Moses had to be raised in the palace of Pharaoh. It wasn't simply about the preservation of Moses. It was essentially so that Moses would not grow up with the slave mentality of the rest of the Jewish race. He grew up with a master's mind. He saw how rulership was handled. He did not grow up with a slave mentality. The generation of Nigerians, and I am one of them, we grew up in a country that and that had a promise. If you want to know just how good our country could be, take a holiday and go into the IITA in Ibadan. That's the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture. When you enter its precinct, you could be anywhere sane in the entire wide world. Pristine lawns, functional sewage, functional water system, at least as functional as it could be within the environment in which it exists. But the moment you step outside the precinct of a neo-colonial institution within our own land, you find hell. So we have given them a piece of our land and they have made paradise out of it. But we have turned the paradise that we were given and bequeathed by God and turned it into hell. Now, what is the connection between EndSARS and the mess in which we are? Impunity. The impunity itself has to be accepted by the mind before it becomes effective. The refusal of these young men and women who are citizens of the world and are refusing to be served in their own country is what is today igniting what we see on our streets. These young people will move beyond asking for the end of SARS, and if they don't, we are going to help them to understand that they should, because a system enables SARS. That is the colomentality. Some people, rulers, have appropriated the bulk of the wealth of the country, and they cater only and solely for themselves. Even the policeman is a victim of the same system. and it is systemic. If a policeman has to buy the epaulets that he wears on his shoulders, if he has to buy his ranks, if he has to buy his own uniform, if he has to buy his boots, all his kit, he has to buy it, and he's being paid less than what is a living wage, it is because the system is designed to ensure that he stays poor, so that he sees the people as the ones from whom he must extract his value. They gave him guns, but they pay him poorly. It is deliberate and it is systemic. But by the time we are done asking, end SARS, end impunity, end bad governance in Nigeria, what you find inevitably is that the young people are connecting the dots. The Nigerian state cannot endure the way it is. The first condition of the human spirit is justice. The human spirit instinctively seeks justice. It seeks equity. The error that a lot of Nigerians have made, which has kept us divided for a long time, is to buy into the hatred that had been sold by our rulers. Let me expatiate. A couple of days ago, there were attacks in the northern part of Nigeria, particularly, I believe it was not. About 3 days ago, there was a rally, a counter rally, demanding that they support SARS. That was, I believe, in Katsina. And some people began to express the sentiment that, hey, see, the northern part of Nigeria does not support what we are doing. I said, shut up. Look at the signs they are holding. Some of them were holding their signs upside down. These were hungry men who had been paid to bear banners by their oppressors. They know no different. And I was told, no, how can you say that? I said, no. If you continue to point at what you are saying in the North as evidence of support by the people, the poor victims, for the excesses of the system, and you allow them to divide us on account of race, or on account of tribe or religion, you would have fallen prey to the games that have been played for the last 54 years and that has kept the Nigerian people apart. I then pointed out that the last election in Ondo State, and I need this pointed out to each and every one of us, Ondo State used to be the knowledge fountain in this country. People were paid less than 10,000 naira to sell their votes. There were 2 senior advocates of Nigeria running for governorship. These are knowledgeable lawyers, but money was freely exchanged. Votes were bought. How much democracy do you really have in a situation where poverty has been weaponized against the people? How effective is the right to choose? That is one. By yesterday, protesters in Abuja were attacked by people who attacked northern youth, and several people were injured and cars were smashed. And people say, hey, see, northern youth. I said, no, it's not northern youth. It's the poor, the victims who are again being weaponized against their own. You've rendered them poor, you've made them supine, you could pay them anything to do anything. And that is exactly what our rulers have been doing. Now, let me point something else out. Lagos is the center of excellence. That is what we have been told for the last 21 years. Today, in Lagos State, in Alausa, in full glare of the world and with the cameras, protesters were set upon by hired thugs who came in state buses. So let us be clear about something. It is not about the Hausa, it is not about the Fulani, it is not about the Yoruba, it is not about the Igbo. It is about internal colonization by a class that has denied all of us citizenship. The president's home state of Katsina is one of the most insecure in this country today. They could do with a lot of FSAS officers. They need a lot of policemen. the kind of brutal ones that have been terrorizing the whole of Nigerians, the sort of ones who were busy packing human remains into bullion vans or their armored trucks at the Shohon of Ogbomoso's palace. Let us be clear. The Shohon of Ogbomoso's palace is right here in Yoruba land. That is not in the north. So for those who are saying it's the north, it's not this or it's not that. It's about a class that does not see the rest of us as citizens. So let us be clear. If anything needs to end in Nigeria, it is the denial of citizenship to the Nigerian people that needs to end forthwith. If anything is required to end, it is the iniquitous governance systems that has enabled the madness of a police that is irresponsible to the people it is supposed to watch over. What more proves the denial of citizenship than the fact that every time the law gives a right or a power, it defines the limits of those powers. What is the power that governs the operation of the Nigerian police? None, because the state itself is not ruled by law. If you are not a member of the ruling class, you are not deserving of protection, and that is shown in the deployment of the forces. It has nothing to do with your tribe. The only reason you don't see so many SARS officers in the north is because anyone who is rich enough to drive a car in the northern part of Nigeria, the kind of jeeps, is connected to somebody. So the SARS officer is careful not to touch him. But there are more prosperous people down in the south. Poverty has been weaponized for centuries in the northern part of Nigeria, and it has only recently become an epidemic in the southern part. The more impunity that has been let loose on the Nigerian people, the more brutal the police have become because they know that there will be no consequences. So when Fela speaks, or shall I say, when he sang of colonial mentality, we must be careful to understand that colonial mentality in the case of Nigeria and within Nigerian context can only be bridged when that generation who is blessed to know better. There was a time in this country, Nigeria, when we had the sort of healthcare delivery system that brought the Saudis to Nigeria. The House of Saudi came to Nigeria to come and get itself treated in Ibadan, one of our provincial cities. There was a time when our universities rivaled any in the world. Even when I was entering universities, people used to come to Nigeria to earn credits for foreign universities. That is no longer the case. It is not by accident. It is because ignorance was deliberately weaponized against the people so that they cannot ask questions of our rulers. So if the Moses generation elects to keep quiet, let it know that we are the threshold of the promised land. The children who are leading the way into that promised land and who have been dying in the last 8 days, who have been brutalized, beaten, and broken by the Nigerian state, we would have failed them if we failed to point them in the direction, because we do know better. Once upon a time, our youth could run abroad. They could find refuge in America, particularly, and also in the UK. But in recent times, thanks to President Donald Trump, America has shown its true face, and the world is no longer pretending to be anything but the racist world it has always been. We all instinctively are racists. That is the truth. You do not need, it is when it becomes negative and you begin to discriminate that it becomes a problem. We always are drawn to our kind. But we are the only race that does not have a history of enslaving any other. but that has been enslaved by every race that we have come across. But the one thing that you must understand is that every time that we have been sold into slavery, our own have been the middlemen collecting the money. Look around you again. There is a second, if not a third slavery going on. I would urge us to understand that our struggle is not with NSAS. It doesn't end with NSAS. It is with a demand for a systemic change. There has to be a different direction, and let us be clear. That different direction must be charted, and a path towards it must be clear before we can possibly declare any victory from the current struggles. Thank you very much.